Decided to do this quick tutorial because it's something I've discovered only recently, and hopefully it's going to prove really useful as I'm trying to edit and trying to make films while at home. Basically, it's an answer to a problem that I'm sure many of us are having, and that's the issue of just poor processor power in the computer, and this makes editing a real chore, a real nightmare. Everything runs really slowly, and it can be really frustrating. Unfortunately, that is part of the deal that we're going through now, and the kit you've got is the kit you've got, and that's what you've got to work with. But hopefully this tutorial will stop you being crushed by the weight of having a slow computer and might help to speed up your workflow a little bit. Now, I'm doing this in Adobe Premiere because that's the software I've got, and this particular tutorial is geared to the Adobe suite, but there are other ways to do this if you haven't got the Adobe suite. It's a little bit more fiddly, but it's always doable. But the idea of this is that you edit with what are known as proxy files, which I'm shooting in 4K, and this computer that you can see cannot handle 4K footage at all. So what I'm doing and what I've learned to do is to create proxies, which are sort of smaller versions of your clips, which you edit with, and then as a final step you swap out the proxy clips and you put in the 4K clips, and then you get a nice full resolution render at the end of it. So basically you can set this up before you do anything in Premiere. Okay, so let's start a new project, and I'll call this proxy tutorial. I've got it all set up there in a folder, but you'll see here there are 3 tabs here. I'm going to press ingest settings, click the ingest box, and then in the drop down menu there I'm going to select create proxies, which means create these smaller files. Then you pick a preset, and it might take a little bit of experimenting to know what your particular machine will like. I'm just going to go with the top one, the default one, which is 1024 by 540 Apple ProRes. Okay, and the destination will be the same as the project, so all the files end up in the same bunch of folders. Now hit OK. Now let's import some footage. So I can just right click in here, or I can go to File, Import, and there are my 2 movie files, 2 4K, and I'm going to import them. And what Premiere will then do is bring those files in, and then it should open the media encoder, which will then start to generate these low-res versions. So let's see if that's coming along. If I just click on the media encoder there, you'll see those 2 files, which are 1134 and 7986, are now in here, and Premiere is doing its thing. I mean, these are 2 relatively small files that I deliberately chose because I thought they'd be quick. It's still saying that it's going to take 9 or 10 minutes, but you can see the progress bar here. So by the magic of editing, I'll wait till these 2 things are done, and then I'll cut back, and we'll continue the tutorial then. Okay, so this has been a full 10 minutes later, and you can see it's just getting to the end of the second clip. These are 2 tiny clips, so I tend to do this just before I go to bed and leave it running overnight. Then the proxies get created whilst you're asleep, which is great. Okay, so that's those done, so I can now close down the media encoder. Okay, so here's my folder with my 2 original clips, and you'll see next to each of them is a clip with the same name except the word proxy has been added. And if I click on one of the original clips and just expand that, you'll see that that clip is 224 megabytes and the proxy is down to 33. So it's much easier to edit with a 33 megabyte clip than it is with a 200 megabyte original file. So we go back to Premiere now. Now we're just, the one thing we have to check is, let's make these into a timeline, is I can drop them in there and it creates a timeline or a sequence, and again you can see how long it takes. And if I just expand the project window, okay, and you can see there's all these various frame rate, media start, all these various things in there. So if I right click and hit the metadata display, here's my project metadata, and just let's click that open, and you'll see the various things here. I can take some of these off, I don't need half of these. Some of that's useful. Tape name, description, I'm going to get rid of all that. But what I want is proxy, which is somewhere near the bottom, and if I hit OK, now you'll see here, I'll just drag this proxy back over here so we can just see it a bit clear. You'll see underneath here it says proxy attached. So that means that now Premiere knows there's an original file and there's a proxy file that you can edit with. So if I hit play on this sequence here, this is a bin shot that I'm doing. So here's the shot, it's a bin shot, and if I click this little plus sign in the program window, which shows your edit, there's a button here called toggle proxies. So if I hit that, sorry, if I drag that down and press OK, now it can toggle between the proxy file and the 4K file. So you can see that's the proxy, plays a bit smoother than the 4K one, which is a bit more jerky. So the idea is that you do your editing with the proxy, with the smaller files, then you replace those or you reattach the big files when it comes to the final render, when you've got your picture lock. Hope this is of help, and good luck with your lockdown, limited resources, slow computers and whatever it is you're working up against. But the idea is to keep making films.